In the 10th century, a mystic named Mansur al-Hallaj stood before a crowd and uttered the phrase that guaranteed his execution: "I am the truth." To the authorities, this was a direct challenge to the religious order, a mortal claiming a title reserved for the divine. But Hallaj spoke from a state where the ego had completely dissolved, leaving no personal identity behind to claim pride. Baghdad in the 10th century was a world of rigid boundaries. Orthodoxy maintained a clear, impassable line between the creator and the creation. To cross that line was to invite total destruction. Most perceive Islam through this lens of outward laws and rituals, yet operating beneath the surface of compliance is a hidden esoteric core, tasawwuf or Sufism. While often associated with poetry, tasawwuf is a rigorous psychological technology. It is a systematic process designed to dismantle the human ego, a journey so intense that it can shatter an unprepared mind. The human mind naturally resists its own erasure. To guide seekers through this internal breakdown, Sufi masters developed a sequential blueprint for spiritual transformation, the 4 gates. The first gate, Sharia, is the gate of the law. Before attempting to transcend the ego, a student must first master it through strict discipline. This involves moral codes, fasting, and asceticism to silence the body's loudest demands. Mystics are often imagined as rebels who reject rules for freedom. In Sufism, the opposite is true. Sufi masters understood that without the rigid external order of the Sharia, the inner psychological journey would lead to a total collapse of the self. The law builds the container for the consciousness. Within that container, the seeker enters the second gate, tariqa, the path. The internal work begins here, and because the psychological traps are so frequent, the journey requires a murshid, a master guide who has survived the same dissolution. Tariqa utilizes physical and sonic tools to shift a student's awareness. They practice dhikr, a rhythmic, repetitive breathing technique designed to forcefully bypass the analytical mind and shift brainwave patterns. This mechanical manipulation of consciousness is most visible in the Sema. Dervishes use sustained, rhythmic spinning to induce deep, controlled trance states. This animated comparison shows the geometric rotation of a human figure alongside the mechanics of a galaxy. Sufis believe the entire universe exists in constant rotation. By spinning on their axis, the dervish attempts to physically sync with these cosmic movements. These methods of physical and sonic harmony break down the brain's everyday routines, forcing the mind to open toward a different perception of reality. Marifa is the gate of direct knowledge. This is the threshold where academic study fails. At this stage, knowledge is no longer something you read in a book. It is something you experience through the senses of the soul. The 11th century scholar Imam al-Ghazali demonstrates the severity of this transition. Despite being the most prestigious academic of his era, he realized his intellect could not bridge the gap to the divine. He abandoned his wealth and position, taking a vow of silence that lasted 11 years. Marifa contains a specific psychological trap, illusion. As a seeker experiences profound spiritual states, the ego can attempt to claim ownership of that power, tricking the individual into believing they have attained personal greatness. Crossing this gate requires the complete abandonment of the intellect. To truly experience the divine, the seeker must willingly forget every fact and theory they have ever learned. The final gate is hakika, the truth. This is the realm of Fana fi Allah, the absolute annihilation of the self. Every trace of personal identity, memory, and will is erased. This state provides the context for Mansur al-Hallaj. When he claimed to be the truth, the I he referred to was not his own personality. Hallaj had reached Fana. There was no longer an individual named Hallaj left to speak. In this visualization, a single data point representing the ego dissolves into a massive, unified field. Sufis describe this through the metaphor of a single drop of water falling into an ocean. Once the drop merges, its individual boundaries vanish forever. In this state of annihilation, the mystic's perception of the world changes. Ibn Arabi described a reality where time is no longer a sequence, but a single point where the past and future exist together, a holographic view of existence where the observer and the observed are one. At the gate of Hakika, the seeker does not simply finish the journey. The self is erased so completely that the individual becomes the gate itself. The goal of the four gates is not to remain in a permanent trance. The true completion is Baka Bi'Allah, existence through Allah, the return to the physical world. This is the state of the perfect human. They return to ordinary life, performing mundane tasks and interacting with society, but they do so as an empty vessel. Their actions are no longer driven by ego, but by a constant flow of divine love. Jalaluddin Rumi remains the most famous example of this enduring legacy. His life and work were the products of a man who successfully navigated the destruction of his own identity and returned to express a love that had no boundaries. Modern culture revolves around the opposite pursuit. We are encouraged to endlessly cultivate our identities, build personal brands, and optimize the self. We seek meaning by making the ego larger and more distinct. The Sufi path suggests the deepest secrets of existence are not found by elevating the self, but by having the courage to lose it entirely.